The bulldozer was halfway through Judith's rosebed when I got there. I saw the yellow blade first. Then I saw the dirt rolling ahead of it. Dark soil, broken tomato cages, irrigation hose, and the pale boards Judith had used around her vegetables all folded together under that blade. The operator didn't notice me pull in. He had hearing protection on. Bradley stood near the machine with his hands in his pockets. Shannon was closer to the barn, speaking with a woman holding a camera. I stopped my truck beside the equipment shed. I didn't shut off the engine right away. 3 days earlier, I had lowered Judith's urn into the family plot. Now, my daughter was watching a hired man flatten the garden her mother had tended since 1979. My name is Stanley Baker, and I'm 71 years old. Before I go on, what city are you listening from? I finally turned off the truck and got out. Shannon saw me first. She stopped talking. The woman with the camera looked toward me, then toward Shannon, as if she'd walked into something private. Bradley didn't move. I pointed at the bulldozer. "What are you doing?" Shannon came across the yard. She wore clean jeans, ankle boots, and a white blouse. That told me she wasn't there to work. Her hair was tied back the same way Judith used to tie hers before church. "Dad, we were going to come talk to you." The bulldozer kept moving. I looked past her. The blade caught the edge of the wooden bench beside the roses. One leg snapped. The bench rolled sideways and disappeared under the dirt. "Then tell him to stop." Shannon glanced at Bradley. Bradley lifted one hand toward the operator. He didn't walk over. He didn't shout. He just waved until the man saw him and took his foot off the pedal. The engine stayed running. It had that heavy diesel knock I knew well from my years repairing graders and loaders. Once you've worked around heavy equipment long enough, you can tell when a machine is idling wrong. This one had a loose exhaust shield. It rattled every few seconds. That was what I focused on. Not the roses, not the bench, not Shannon's white blouse, the loose shield. Bradley came closer, though not close enough to stand beside his wife. "We're cleaning the place up," he said. "For what?" Shannon took a breath. "We've decided to sell the farm." She said it gently. She said it the way someone tells you a restaurant has closed. Unfortunate, but settled. I looked at Bradley again. He studied the toe of his boot. That was how they'd handled hard conversations throughout their marriage. Bradley made the decision. Shannon explained it. If someone got upset, he stood nearby and looked burdened. The camera woman held her equipment against her chest. "I can give you folks a minute," she said. Nobody answered her. I looked back at Shannon. "When did you decide this?" "We've been discussing it." "How long?" "A while." Judith had been dead less than 2 months. She died near the end of May after several difficult weeks at the hospital in Cheyenne. We had her cremated, according to her wishes. Her older cousins couldn't travel until July, so we scheduled the memorial for July 11th. After the service, I carried her urn to the small family plot behind our house. Shannon walked on one side of me. Bradley walked on the other. 3 days later, they brought in a bulldozer. "What does a while mean?" I asked. Shannon rubbed one wrist with the other hand. Since before Mom's memorial, the words sat there between us. Bradley finally looked up. "Stanley, nobody wanted to add more stress." I ignored him. "Did your mother know?" Shannon's face changed. It was small, but I saw it. "No." "Did you talk about selling while she was alive?" "Dad, that's not what this is. That's a yes or no question." She looked back at the barn. "We talked about our options." I nodded once. The bulldozer operator switched off the machine. The sudden quiet was worse. Dust drifted through the open side of the garden fence. The woman with the camera introduced herself. Her name was Linda Barber. She said she was a real estate broker in Wheatland. "I'm sorry about the garden," Linda said. I understood everything had been discussed. With whom? Her eyes went to Shannon. Linda didn't answer. I walked past them and stepped into what remained of the garden. The western half was gone. Judith's roses had stood along the fence. She had 6 bushes there. 2 red, 2 yellow, 1 white, and a pink one Shannon gave her for Mother's Day years ago. Only the white bush remained. Its branches leaned under a layer of dust. Judith wasn't fancy about gardening. She used old coffee cans for fertilizer. She stored seed packets inside a chipped blue bowl. Every spring, she claimed she was cutting back. Every spring, she planted more. I found the metal garden marker she'd painted for the tomatoes. It was bent in the middle. I wiped the dirt off with my thumb and put it in my shirt pocket. Behind me, Shannon said, "We can replant things at your house." I turned around. "At my house. You know what I mean." No, I don't. The garden can be moved. Bradley stepped in then. We don't need to make this harder than it is. I looked at him. How hard is it? He pressed his lips together. That's enough, Dad, Shannon said. She'd never spoken to me that way before, not quite like that. Judith and I hadn't raised her to be afraid of us. She disagreed with me plenty. But this was different. This was her telling me where my line was. I looked toward the old two-story farmhouse, the machine shed, and the cottonwoods along the creek. My father bought the original 640 acres in 1948. When he died in 1979, the whole place came to me. That same year, Judith planted the garden. For a long time, the farm was our whole life. Wheat, alfalfa, a small cattle herd, and whatever repair work I could pick up during the winter. Judith kept the books at our kitchen table. She could look at a stack of receipts and tell me where I'd bought a hydraulic hose 3 months earlier. By the time Shannon married Bradley in 2004, my knees were tired, and I was tired of worrying about weather. Bradley liked machinery. He talked about keeping the land productive. Shannon said she wanted to raise her family where she had grown up. So the following year, I gave them the 500-acre farm parcel. Not sold. Gave. Judith and I kept the remaining 140 acres. That included our house, the small pasture, my workshop, and the family burial plot. The access road from Antelope Creek Road ran past our house, crossed part of their parcel, then reached the farm buildings. Rodney Holland handled the documents. Rodney had been our attorney since Shannon was young. I remembered signing a deed. I remembered maps and legal descriptions. I remembered Rodney insisting that my road access be recorded. I didn't remember every page. Why would I? For more than 20 years, nobody questioned my right to drive that road. Standing in the ruined garden, I realized I no longer knew exactly what I had given away. That bothered me more than Bradley's silence. "When are you listing it?" I asked. Shannon looked relieved that I'd asked a practical question. "Soon. Linda wants the photographs done this week." "Is that why the garden had to go?" Linda answered carefully. The front approach looked crowded. We wanted cleaner sight lines around the house and barn. That garden wasn't in front of the house. Bradley said, "The buyer won't want it." "You have a buyer already?" Nobody spoke for a moment. Shannon looked at Bradley. He gave her a short nod. "We have interested parties," she said, "before the listing photographs. It's not unusual." I looked at Linda. She adjusted the strap on her camera. Sometimes buyers approach before a property goes public. How did they know it was available? Bradley finally stepped beside Shannon. "People know people, Stanley." "What people?" He sighed. "This is exactly why we wanted to sit down first. You brought a bulldozer first." Shannon closed her eyes for a second. "Dad, please. We weren't trying to hurt you." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because Mom had just died." "So, you waited until 3 days after we buried her." Her mouth tightened. Bradley said, "That's not fair." I turned toward him. "Which part?" He didn't answer. The bulldozer operator climbed down. He looked uncomfortable and kept his eyes on the ground. "Should I load up?" he asked Bradley. Bradley started to respond, but Shannon cut him off. "Yes, we're done for today." "For today," I repeated. She looked straight at me then. "We can't leave everything frozen forever." That sounded like Bradley. Not the words exactly, but the idea. He was always talking about moving forward. When his dealership had a slow month, he said they had to move forward. When he traded in a truck that wasn't paid off, he said it was part of moving forward. Judith used to say Bradley could make a bad decision, sound like transportation. I nearly smiled when I remembered that. My face wouldn't do it. Shannon came closer and lowered her voice. "Mom wouldn't want you fighting with us over this." I looked at her for a long time. "Your mother isn't here to tell us what she wants." Shannon's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. I hated that she'd used Judith that way. I also knew grief makes people reach for whatever sentence ends an argument. I wasn't ready to decide which explanation belonged to Shannon. I walked back to my truck. "Dad," she called. I opened the door. "We'll come over tonight. We'll explain everything. I won't be there tonight." "Where are you going?" "I don't know yet." That was true. I drove back down the access road at 10 miles an hour. Half a mile isn't far, but that road looked different on the way home. Every fence post seemed to mark something I'd failed to keep. Our house sat on a rise above the creek. It was a plain ranch house with tan siding and a green metal roof. Judith chose the roof color. I argued for brown because it was cheaper. She waited until I finished, then ordered green. The family plot was beyond the windbreak. I could see the fresh earth from the driveway. I went inside through the mudroom. Judith's gardening shoes were still under the bench. Dried mud clung to the soles. Her canvas gloves hung from a nail beside my work coat. I hadn't moved either one. The house was hot. I'd forgotten to open the kitchen windows that morning. I set the bent tomato marker on the table and stood at the sink. There were 2 coffee cups in the drain rack. I still made 2 cups some mornings. That habit embarrassed me, even though nobody saw it. I'd fill both mugs, carry them to the table, then remember. The second cup would sit across from me until it went cold. The morning after the memorial, I did it again. Judith and I had been married 48 years. People hear that and imagine you become one person. You don't. She liked the bedroom window open in winter. I hated it. I kept tools on the kitchen counter. She moved them. She watched weather reports as if the forecast might improve through concentration. We were 2 separate people who had repeated the same ordinary days together for so long that every room expected both of us. After she died, I could still manage the large things. I signed the hospital papers. I called the funeral home. I spoke at the memorial without losing my place. It was the small things that stopped me. I didn't know which laundry soap she bought. I couldn't find the spare vacuum bags. I stood in the grocery store for 10 minutes because I couldn't remember whether we used salted butter. Shannon helped during those first weeks. She brought casseroles. She sorted Judith's medications and returned them to the pharmacy. She sat beside me while we chose the urn. That was why the bulldozer made no sense. Shannon could be stubborn, but she wasn't heartless. She knew what that garden meant. She'd spent enough summer mornings out there beside her mother. She'd complained about weeding, eaten peas straight from the vines, and carried baskets into the house. Bradley had never cared about the garden. He cared about usable ground, machinery access, and what he called presentation. Still, the farm belonged to both of them. I'd signed it over. I opened the cupboard above the refrigerator and took down the bourbon Judith gave me on our last anniversary. The seal was already broken. I had poured from it once, the night after she died. I held the bottle, then put it back. It wasn't time. Instead, I filled a glass with water and sat at the kitchen table. The bent marker lay in front of me. A few minutes later, a vehicle came up the driveway. Shannon parked beside my truck. She came inside without knocking, as she always had. Bradley wasn't with her. She stopped when she saw the marker. "You took that." It was under the bulldozer. She sat across from me. For 1 second, I expected Judith's coffee cup to be there. I'd put it away that morning. Shannon rested both hands on the table. "I'm sorry you found out like that." "You mean, while it was happening?" "Yes." "Would you have told me before the listing went up?" "Of course." "When?" She looked toward the window. I waited. "We were trying to find the right time." "You had 3 days." "That's not what I meant." "Then tell me what you meant." She leaned back. "The farm is too much." "For whom?" "For us." "You lease most of the cropland. That doesn't mean there's no work." "I didn't say there was no work." "Dad, you do this." "Do what?" "You make me explain every word until I sound wrong." I folded my hands. "Then say the part you came to say." She stood and walked to the sink. She looked out toward the cottonwoods where the new grave was hidden behind the trees. "We can get a good price," she said. "How good?" "Linda thinks a little over 2 million. I didn't react. It was a large number. It was also 500 acres with water rights, buildings, and road access. "What will you do after?" "We haven't decided." "Move?" "Maybe." "Where?" "I don't know. Somewhere easier." "For you or Bradley?" She turned. "For both of us." "What happens to his dealership?" Her expression changed again. "Nothing." "Why would anything happen to it?" "You said you might move. We could stay near Wheatland." "Then what becomes easier?" She came back to the table but didn't sit. "This isn't an interrogation." "No. It's my kitchen. That farm isn't yours anymore." There it was. She looked sorry as soon as she said it. She also didn't take it back. "No," I said. "I suppose it isn't." "Dad." "You're right. I gave it to you. Because you wanted me to have it. I did. And now I need you to trust me." "Does trust usually require a bulldozer?" She picked up her purse. "I knew this would happen." "What would happen?" "You'd turn it into some test of whether I love Mom." "I never said that." You didn't have to. She headed for the mudroom. I followed her as far as the kitchen doorway. Shannon, she stopped. Did Bradley tell you to sell? She kept her back to me. We decided together. That isn't what I asked. She turned around. He's my husband. I know who he is. You've never respected him. That's not true. You've never thought he was good enough? I gave the two of you 500 acres. She flinched at that. I wished I hadn't said it that way. A gift isn't supposed to become a bill you hand someone later. Judith had warned me about that when we signed the land over. Shannon opened the mudroom door. We're going ahead with the sale, she said. I wanted you to hear it from me. I heard it from a bulldozer. She left. I watched her drive away, then went back to the kitchen. I wrote the date on an envelope from the electric cooperative, July 14th, 2026. Below it, I wrote 4 things. Bulldozer at garden, Linda Barber taking photographs. Buyer may already exist. Shannon says farm is not mine. I wasn't building a case. At least, that wasn't what I told myself. I'd repaired heavy equipment for most of my working life. When a machine failed, you wrote down what happened before you started replacing parts. Otherwise, you ended up fixing the wrong problem. That evening I ate half a sandwich. I carried the other half to the porch and watched the light fade over the farm. From my chair I could see the roof of the old barn. I could also see part of the access road. That road bothered me. I remembered Rodney spreading a map across his desk in 2005. I remembered him tapping the road with his pen. This stays protected, Stanley, he had said. I remembered agreeing. I couldn't remember what protected meant. The next morning, I woke before 5. For a few seconds, I thought Judith was in the bathroom. Then I heard the water heater click and understood the house was empty. I made 1 cup of coffee. At 7, I walked to the family plot. The grass was wet around my boots. Judith's marker hadn't arrived, so a temporary metal plaque stood at the head of the grave. I cleared 2 leaves from it. You'd tell me I'm being stubborn, I said. A meadowlark called from the fence. You'd also tell me to read what I signed. I stayed there until the sun reached the tops of the cottonwoods. When I returned to the house, 3 glossy pamphlets sat in the middle of my kitchen table. One showed an older couple walking beside a pond. Another showed a dining room with white tablecloths. The largest had gold letters across the front. Independent senior, living for your next chapter. I hadn't put them there. The doors were locked when I went outside. Shannon still had a key. So did Bradley. I opened the largest pamphlet. Someone had circled a sentence in blue ink. No more property maintenance, isolation, or daily uncertainty. Under that, in handwriting I recognized from equipment invoices, Bradley had written 4 words, worth considering for Stanley. I stood at the table with my coffee in one hand. At first I thought the sale was about the farm. Those pamphlets told me I was part of the property they intended to clear. I set my coffee down and took pictures of all 3 pamphlets. I photographed the covers, the circle sentences, and Bradley's handwriting. Then I put each pamphlet into a clean grocery bag and slid the bag onto the top shelf of the hall closet. Judith used to keep wrapping paper there. I could still see the cardboard tube from the silver paper she bought every Christmas. I didn't call Shannon. I didn't call Bradley either. If either of them wanted to know whether I'd found the pamphlets, they could ask. I wanted to hear how they asked. More importantly, I wanted to know whether they expected me to mention them first. I checked the mudroom door. There were no scratches around the lock. Nothing had been forced. Shannon had a key because she was my daughter. Bradley had one because he was her husband. I had never considered those keys a risk. I found the spare set in the kitchen drawer. 2 keys were missing from the little brass ring. Judith had labeled the ring with masking tape years before. Shannon and Brad. She was the only person who called him Brad. Even Bradley's own employees used his full name. I held that ring for a while. Then I put it back exactly where I'd found it. Changing the locks would tell them I'd noticed. I wasn't ready to do that. Instead, I took an old wooden wedge from my workshop. That night, I pushed it under the mudroom door from the inside. It wasn't elegant, but nobody could quietly enter while I slept. For the next 2 days, nothing happened. Linda's listing photographs never appeared online. At least, I couldn't find them. The bulldozer stayed parked beside the equipment shed, but the operator didn't return. Shannon called once on Thursday. "Are you eating?" she asked. "Yes." "What did you have?" "A sandwich." "That isn't dinner." It was at noon. She waited for me to tell her what I'd eaten in the evening. I didn't. "Do you need groceries?" she asked. "No, I could stop by." "I'm fine." Another pause. Did you see the information we left? There it was. What information? The brochures. What brochures? About some housing options. I sat at the kitchen table and looked toward the hall closet. You mean the retirement home pamphlets? They're not nursing homes. I didn't call them nursing homes. They're independent communities. You'd have your own apartment. I have my own house. Dad, I'm not saying you have to do anything. Then why did you put them on my table? We thought you should know what's available. Who's we? She let out a breath. Bradley and me. Did you come in with him? No. So he came into my house alone. He has a key. I know. You gave it to us. I gave it to you for emergencies. This is getting ridiculous. I kept my voice even. Was there an emergency? No. Then why was he in my kitchen? She didn't answer. I could hear a door close on her end. She might have been at home. She might have stepped into another room. Bradley's worried about you, she said. Is he? We both are. What has he seen that worries him? You're alone? That isn't a medical condition. Nobody said it was. What else? You're not sleeping. How would Bradley know? Dad, stop picking everything apart. I looked at the bent garden marker still lying near the salt shaker. What do the pamphlets have to do with selling the farm? They don't. You're sure? Yes. Her answer came too quickly. If I moved, I said, what would happen to my house? Nothing. We haven't discussed that. That answer came slowly. I wrote it down after we hung up. She knows about brochures, says house not discussed. I didn't know whether Shannon believed that. That was the part I couldn't settle. I knew when she was lying about small things. She'd been a poor liar since she was young. Her voice rose slightly, and she added details nobody had requested. This was different. It sounded as though she was repeating something she had decided to trust. Friday morning, I went through the mail piled beside the refrigerator. Most of it was ordinary. A power bill, 2 hardware store advertisements, a church newsletter, a condolence card from a couple Judith knew in Torrington. My bank statement wasn't there. I kept paper statements. Shannon had tried to move me to online banking years earlier. I told her paper didn't forget a password. The statement usually arrived around the middle of the month. I checked the stack again, then looked through the trash beneath the sink. Nothing. It might have been late. Mail goes missing. Judith once received a birthday card 6 weeks after her birthday. Still, I had made myself a rule after seeing those pamphlets. I wasn't going to explain away anything until I checked it. I called First Platte Bank. A woman in customer service asked for my account number and the last 4 digits of my social security number. Your statement went out Monday, she said. That was July 13th? Yes, sir. What address did you send it to? She read my Antelope Creek Road address. Has anyone changed the address on my account? Not according to what I see. Can anyone besides me make changes? She put me on hold. When she returned, her voice was more careful. There isn't another authorized signer on this account. Not my daughter? No, sir. Not my son-in-law? No. Thank you. I called the Wheatland post office next. The employee who answered said mail could take several business days. I asked whether she could check for a forwarding request. I can't do that over the phone, she said. You'll need to come in with identification. I'll be there shortly. Before leaving, I opened the strongbox in my bedroom closet. It was gray steel with a handle on top. I kept my truck title, birth certificate, marriage license, and property documents inside. Judith used to call it the fireproof box, though I doubted it would survive much of a fire. The folder marked land was thicker than I remembered. I didn't open it. I only checked that it was still there. Then I locked the strongbox and carried the key with me. The post office on Gilchrist Street was quiet. One man stood at the counter with a box wrapped in brown paper. A woman was filling out a certified mail slip. When my turn came, I showed my driver's license and explained why I was there. The clerk's name was Denise. I knew her face, but not her last name. She typed my address into her computer. Her expression changed. There is a forward in place, she said. Since when? The effective date is July 13th. Who requested it? I can't see the name from this screen. Where is my mail going? She looked at my license again. A post office box, here in Wheatland. What number? She hesitated. I need my supervisor. A man named Carl came from the back. He listened while Denise explained. Then he asked me the same questions again. Did you submit a change online? He asked. No. Did you fill out a card? No. Could someone in your household have done it? I live alone. He turned the monitor slightly away from the lobby and entered another screen. Someone filed a paper request, he said. Can I see it? Not from here. We scan those centrally. Can you tell me where it goes? He read the post office box number, 214. I knew that number. Read equipment and implement used post office box 214. I had mailed checks there when Bradley's service department repaired my baler. Cancel the forward, I said. Carl printed a form and asked me to sign it. I read every line before I touched the pen. It confirmed that I was the resident at my address. It stated that the forwarding request was unauthorized. It also requested the return of any mail being held at the destination box. Will the person with that box be notified? I asked. Not immediately. The system should just stop forwarding. Can I get a copy of whatever was filed? You can submit a request through postal inspection. How long does that take? It varies. I need something today showing the forwarding address. He printed the screen record. It showed my name, my home address, the effective date, and post office box 214 as the new destination. The name on the line marked agent was blank. The contact phone number wasn't. It belonged to Bradley's dealership. I knew it because the last 4 digits spelled out farm on a telephone keypad. Bradley had paid extra for that number when he opened the business. I pointed to it. That's my son-in-law's phone number. Carl looked at the screen, then at me. Do you want to file a fraud complaint? I want a copy of the original form. We'll start the request. He gave me a case number and wrote his extension beneath it. As I left, Denise called after me. Mr. Baker, I turned. You may want to contact anyone who mails you financial information. Thank you. Outside, I sat in my truck without starting it. The facts were simple. Someone had entered my house and left retirement pamphlets. Someone had redirected my mail to Bradley's business box. The forwarding request became effective 2 days after Judith's memorial and 1 day before the bulldozer arrived. I took a photograph of the post office printout. Then I placed it inside the registration sleeve in my glove compartment. I still didn't call Shannon. There were explanations I could imagine. Bradley might claim he was helping. He might say I'd agreed and forgotten. Shannon might say the forwarding was temporary because I wasn't checking my mail. That last excuse wouldn't even make sense. But people don't always need an excuse to make sense. Sometimes they only need it to sound gentle. I drove to First Platte Bank. The customer service woman printed a duplicate statement. I checked every transaction at a small desk near the lobby. No money was missing. My checking balance was right. The savings account was right. My automatic payments had gone through. The statement itself wasn't the problem. The problem was who wanted to read it. I asked the woman to add a verbal password to both accounts. I chose the name of the first tractor my father owned. Nobody living besides me would know it. She handed me a receipt showing the security change. Anything else today? She asked. Can someone open credit using my accounts as proof? Her eyebrows rose. Not without additional identification. What about a family member? A family member would need the same authorization as anyone else. I thanked her and left. From the bank, I drove 2 blocks to Rodney Holland's office. His name was painted in gold letters on the front window. The paint had peeled at the bottom of the H. I remembered telling him to fix it the previous winter. His receptionist, Marie, looked up from her desk. Stanley. She stood and came around the counter. Instead of hugging me, she touched my forearm. I appreciated that. I'm so sorry about Judith, she said. Thank you. She sent me a card when my husband had surgery. I still have it. That sounds like her. Rodney's with someone, but I'll tell him you're here. I don't have an appointment. You don't need one today. She took the post office paper when I asked for a copy. I kept the original. A few minutes later, Rodney opened his office door. He was 74, 3 years older than me, though he acted as if he had seniority over everyone. He wore suspenders and kept reading glasses on a cord around his neck. He didn't say anything about Judith at first. He put both hands on my shoulders and looked at me. Then he said, "Come sit down." His office smelled like paper, coffee, and the lemon oil Marie used on the furniture. File boxes lined one wall. A fishing calendar hung beside the window, still turned to June. I sat in the same wooden chair I had used in 2005. Rodney closed the door. What happened? Shannon and Bradley are selling the farm. His face stayed still. The 500-acre parcel? Yes. Have they given you anything to sign? Not yet. Have they asked about the road? Not directly. He held out his hand. I gave him the post office printout. He read it twice. When did you learn about the sale? Tuesday. I drove over and found a bulldozer taking out Judith's garden. Rodney lowered the paper. They did what? They're preparing for photographs. 3 days after the memorial? Yes. He removed his glasses and wiped them with his tie. Tell me everything. Start with the bulldozer. I did. He asked where Bradley had stood. He asked what Linda had said. He asked whether Shannon mentioned a buyer, price, or closing date. I told him about the $2 million. I told him about the brochures. I told him Bradley had entered my house alone. Rodney wrote on a yellow pad. When I finished, he tapped his pen against the desk. Do you remember the protections we put in place when you transferred that land? I remember access. What else? That's why I'm here. He picked up his phone. Marie, pull the Baker transfer file. 2005. Recorded instruments too, if we still have the duplicates. He hung up and looked at me. We still have them. You sound sure. I'm the one who refused to close the file. Why? Because you were giving away most of your land. I was giving it to Shannon and Bradley. I shifted in the chair. Rodney leaned back. At the time, you thought that distinction didn't matter. Judith trusted him. So did you. I'm not sure she trusted him as much as I thought. Marie brought in a thick brown file and set it on Rodney's desk. A red label across the front read, Baker Family Transfer. Rodney opened it carefully. The warranty deed was on top. Beneath it were maps, tax forms, and several recorded documents bearing the clerk's stamp. He found the easement grant and slid it toward me. This gives you permanent use of the access road across the transferred parcel, he said. They can't block it, narrow it, or interfere with your reasonable use. That much I remember. He turned 2 pages. This is the part you don't. The document had a long title. I read it twice and understood very little. Rodney pointed to one paragraph. We gave you a right of first refusal. If Shannon and Bradley want to sell, they must first provide you the full written terms. You have the right to match the offer. I can't match $2 million. You don't need to. Why not? He moved his finger lower. This clause requires your written release before a sale can close. I looked up. Because of the road? Because the road is the only legal access serving the farm parcel. The easement is in your name. It's tied to your retained land, but the release authority belongs personally to you. What happens if they sell without it? Rodney read directly from the document, then translated it into words I could use. The title reverts to you. The whole farm? The 500 acres described in the deed. I sat back. That can't be standard. It was standard for me when an aging client gave away income-producing land and kept the home parcel, especially when the son-in-law had been married into the family for less than a year. Did Bradley know? He signed the acknowledgement. That doesn't mean he read it. No, it doesn't. Did Shannon know? She signed too. But this was 21 years ago. They may remember only that you kept road access. I looked at the recorded stamp. The instrument had been filed with Platte County in my name. Rodney's copy carried the same book and page numbers as the original. So, they can't sell unless I agree. Correct. And if they somehow sell without my agreement, it comes back to me. Correct. Rodney watched me. What do you want me to do? He asked. I thought about Shannon standing in the kitchen. That farm isn't yours anymore. I thought about the pamphlets. Then I thought about my bank statement traveling toward Bradley's box. Nothing yet, I said. Rodney's pen stopped. Nothing? Make copies for me. Keep your originals here. Don't call Shannon. Don't call Bradley. They need to be put on notice. Not yet. Why? Because I want to know what they think they're doing. Rodney studied me for several seconds. Then he closed the file. All right. But from this point forward, you sign nothing without bringing it here. I wasn't planning to. I mean nothing, Stanley. Not a delivery receipt. Not an address form. Not a note saying you received a package. He made 3 certified copies of the recorded instrument. I put one in my strongbox. One went into the locked drawer of my workbench. The third stayed in a plain envelope behind the seat of my truck. That evening, I removed the wooden wedge from the mudroom door and set it beside my bed. I wanted them to believe my house was still open. I just wasn't going to leave anything unprotected inside it. The following Monday, someone knocked at 9:40 in the morning. I was in the workshop cleaning a carburetor. The knock came again before I reached the mudroom. A man stood on the step holding a brown leather folder. He wore gray slacks, a blue shirt, and polished black shoes. His hair was white around the sides and thin on top. Mr. Baker? Yes. My name is Fred Silva. I'm with Golden Years Advisory. He offered his hand. I looked past him. A silver sedan sat in the driveway. No company name was printed on the door. Do we have an appointment? Not formally. I was in Wheatland this morning, so I thought I'd save you a trip. A trip where? To my office. I waited. His smile stayed in place. Your family asked me to stop by and explain some options. What family? Shannon and Bradley Reed. Which one called you? He adjusted the folder under his arm. I believe Bradley made the initial contact. Did he tell you I wanted your help? He said you might be hesitant. That's not the same thing. No, sir, it isn't. He didn't push past me. He didn't raise his voice. Fred was good at standing quietly while making it feel rude to leave him outside. I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind me. What kind of advisor are you? Senior Financial Transitions. Are you a financial planner? Not in the investment sense. An accountant? No. Attorney? He smiled again. Definitely not. Insurance? I don't sell insurance. What do you sell? Peace of mind, mostly. That must be difficult to price. His smile weakened. He opened the leather folder and handed me a business card. It showed his name, a telephone number, and the words Golden Years Advisory Services. There was no street address. We help families coordinate housing, property, and financial paperwork during major life changes, he said. Moving from a large home, simplifying accounts, making sure utility and mailing information follows the client. Mailing information, that's one example. Do you file change of address forms? We can assist with them. Did you assist with mine? He looked at me for the first time without smiling. I wouldn't know anything about that. You came here to discuss my move, to discuss possibilities. I haven't decided to move, of course. You said my family contacted you. They're worried you may be overwhelmed. By what? Your recent loss. Property upkeep. Financial decisions. He said recent loss as though Judith had been a misplaced wallet. How long have you known Bradley? I asked. I don't know him personally. How much is he paying you? That's between my office and the referring party. So he is paying you. Fred looked toward his car. Mr. Baker, I'm not here to upset you. Then we agree on one thing. He tucked the business card back into his folder. I can leave some information. I already have pamphlets. This is more specific. He started to turn. I considered letting him go. Then I remembered what Rodney had said. I wanted to know what they thought they were doing. You came all this way, I said. You may as well explain it. His shoulders relaxed. Thank you. This won't take long. I led him into the kitchen. Before sitting, he looked around the room. His eyes stopped on the stack of unopened condolence cards. Then he noticed the calendar beside the refrigerator. What day is it today, Mr. Baker? Monday. He gave a small laugh. I meant, how is your day going? No, you didn't. His face reddened. That came out wrong. It came out clearly. I apologize. I sat across from him. He placed the leather folder on the table. From inside, he removed a thinner folder made of dark green cardboard. Golden Years Advisory was stamped across the front in gold. I brought a basic planning packet, he said. Planning what? Whatever you choose. He opened it. The first page had spaces for my full name, birth date, social security number, bank, attorney, physician, and nearest relative. I slid it back. You don't need any of that. Not today. Not any day. We can leave those sections blank. Why bring them? It's a standard packet. He moved that page aside. The next sheet was titled Home Transition Readiness Checklist. It asked whether I prepared my own meals, took medication without assistance, drove after dark, had fallen recently, or experienced trouble remembering appointments. Fred took out a pen. Would you say you manage most daily tasks without help? I'd say you can put your pen away. He did. These questions help establish what services you might need. Who receives the answers? Only our office. Does Bradley receive them? Not without permission. Did he ask for them? Fred closed the checklist. Your son-in-law told me you've been having a difficult time. My wife died. I'm sorry. Are those the words he used? He said you weren't yourself. What does that mean? I can't speak for him. You just did. Fred shifted in his chair. He was 63. His business card gave no age, but he told me when I asked. He said he'd entered the senior transition field after helping his own parents move. Where do your parents live? I asked. My mother passed. My father lives in Arizona. Did he sign this packet? That was a different situation. I expect it was. Fred gathered the checklist and placed it beneath the first page. I think we've started on the wrong foot. You showed up uninvited and tested whether I knew what day it was. I apologized. You did. Could we look at the property section? It may be more useful. He took out another group of papers. The first two were ordinary. One listed household utilities. The other asked about insurance policies and property taxes. The third was labeled Authorization for Records Coordination. Fred turned it toward me. This lets us verify your address and property information, he said. It doesn't allow us to move money or sell anything. I'll read it, certainly. He placed the pen beside my hand. The first paragraph authorized Golden Years Advisory to contact banks, insurance companies, government offices, title companies, and other institutions holding records in my name. The second paragraph allowed them to receive copies. The third allowed them to share those copies with a designated family representative. The representative line was blank. Who goes there? I asked. That would be your choice. Who did Bradley want there? He didn't specify. I looked at Fred. He looked down. I turned to the next page. This page is routine address verification, he said. It confirms which parcel remains your primary residence. The top half did that. It listed my 140-acre home parcel and Antelope Creek Road address. The lower half contained a second legal description. I recognized the section and township numbers from Rodney's copies. It described the access road crossing the 500-acre parcel. A paragraph beneath it said, I acknowledge that designated portions of my ingress and egress rights could be modified, subordinated, or partially released for property transition purposes. The words were small. They were surrounded by language about mail delivery, emergency services, utilities, and future residential placement. My signature line sat at the bottom. I read the paragraph again. What property transition? Fred folded his hands. It's broad language, broad enough to include selling the farm. I'm not qualified to interpret legal terms. You brought legal terms to my kitchen. It's a records form. It releases part of my road, only if needed. Needed by whom? The title company might require some cleanup. What title company? He reached for the page. I held it down with 2 fingers. Which title company? I don't have that information. Then how do you know what it might require? I was speaking generally. You said the title company. I said a title company. No, you didn't. He sat back. The clock above the sink ticked through several seconds. I took the pen and drew a line through the signature space. Fred leaned forward. Please don't mark the original. You called it my packet. It's a working copy. Then I'm working on it? I wrote declined beside the signature line and added the date. Fred's jaw tightened. That's unnecessary. It seemed useful. I'll take the packet back. I closed the green folder. No. Mr. Baker, those are company documents. You said you brought them for me. I brought them for review. I reviewed them. He reached across the table. I moved the folder onto the chair beside me. Fred stood. I'm trying to help your family. Then tell me who prepared that release. It isn't a release. It says partially released. That language is contingent. On what? I don't know. Did Bradley give you the legal description? Fred picked up his leather folder. You should discuss this with your daughter. I will decide who I discuss it with. This hostility is exactly what concerns them. I looked up at him. Hostility. You're reacting very strongly to ordinary paperwork. What would a reasonable reaction look like? I'm not here to evaluate you. You asked what day it was. I explained that. You also asked whether I could feed myself, take medicine, and drive after dark. Those are standard questions. For what? For transition planning. I'm not transitioning anywhere. He tucked his pen into his shirt pocket. Your family has a different understanding of where I'm going, of what may be best. Did Shannon ask you to get my signature? He hesitated. She knew I was coming. That wasn't an answer. Did you speak with her yourself? Bradley coordinated the visit. Did Shannon speak to you? I don't recall. You met with her? No. Talked on the phone? I've had several calls this week. You'd remember her. He put his hand on the back of the chair. Keep the folder. I'll note that you declined assistance. Note why. I'm sorry. Write that I declined after finding a partial easement release in your address paperwork. I don't agree with that description. But you understand it. Fred walked toward the mudroom. I followed him. At the door, he turned. Mr. Baker, Grief can make ordinary decisions feel threatening. Who told you to say that? Nobody. Then don't use my wife to explain why I read a document. He opened the door. I wish you well. I watched him cross the driveway. Before he reached his car, I took out my phone and photographed the license plate. He saw me do it. He stopped with one hand on the door handle. Is that necessary? I'm keeping records. Of what? Ordinary decisions. He got in without answering. I watched until his sedan disappeared down Antelope Creek Road. Then I returned to the kitchen and locked the door. The green folder remained on the chair. I photographed every page before moving anything. I photographed the order they were in. Then I put the folder inside a large plastic sleeve Judith had used for tax receipts. I called Rodney. He answered on the second ring. Did you sign anything? Good morning to you too. Stanley? No, I didn't sign. What happened? A man named Fred Silva brought me a senior planning packet. There was silence on the line. What kind of planning? The kind that releases part of my easement. Rodney's chair creaked. Read the exact language. I did. Don't write on it, he said. I already did. What did you write? Declined. Rodney let out a slow breath. That's acceptable. I thought you might approve. Bring the entire folder here. I'm making another stop first. Where? Shannon's house. No, I need to know if she sent him. You can ask by telephone. She'll tell me Bradley was trying to help. And going there will change that? I want to see her face. Rodney knew me well enough to understand. Don't bring the folder, he said. Don't tell her what you found in it. Ask only whether she approved the visit. I can do that. Then come straight here. Shannon and Bradley lived in a newer house west of town. They'd built it after the dealership had 2 strong years. The front lawn was green despite the July heat. Bradley's pickup wasn't there. Shannon opened the door, wearing old jeans and a gray t-shirt. She held a dish towel. Dad. What are you doing here? Did you send Fred Silva to my house? Her forehead tightened. Who? Golden Years Advisory. Oh, you know the name. Bradley mentioned someone might call you. He didn't call. He arrived with paperwork. She stepped onto the porch and pulled the door behind her. What paperwork? Did you approve the visit? I told Bradley we should get information. Information about what? Your options. Did you tell Fred I can't manage my affairs? No. Did you tell Bradley that? Of course not. Did you know Fred would ask about my memory? Her hand stopped moving on the towel. He did what? He asked the day. He asked whether I could prepare food. He asked about falling, medicine, and driving. That's probably standard. For what? She looked toward the driveway. I don't know, Dad. I didn't arrange it. Did you ask Bradley to arrange it? We talked about you needing help. What help? With the house, the bills, everything. Have I missed a bill? No. Have I asked you to maintain the house? No. Have I gotten lost? No. Then what is the problem you're solving? Her eyes filled with frustration. You don't have to fail before we worry. That sounds prepared. What does that mean? It means Bradley said it first. She folded the towel into a tight square. Why are you doing this? I'm asking what you knew. I knew he was finding someone to talk about housing, that's all. Did you know that person would bring documents? No, I believe that part. Where is Bradley? At the dealership. Has he said anything about my road? Your road? The access across the farm? No. Has Linda asked for anything from me? Not that I know of. What was in the paperwork? I looked at her for a moment. Things I wasn't willing to sign. She stepped closer. Dad, if it's just a privacy release, maybe you're making this bigger. Did Bradley tell you it was a privacy release? No. I'm guessing. Stop guessing for him. Her face hardened. He's my husband, and I'm your father. That doesn't mean you get to make me choose. I haven't asked you to choose. You're standing on my porch questioning me like I did something terrible. I'm asking whether you know what your husband is doing. She opened the front door. I'm not having this conversation. All right. She looked surprised that I didn't resist. I walked back to my truck. Before I got in, she called my name. I turned. Are you going to fight the sale? She asked. I haven't decided what I'm going to do. That's not fair to us. You haven't told me what you need from me. We need you not to interfere. There it was again. Something she knew without knowing why. I drove to Rodney's office with the green folder on the floor behind my seat. He read each page in silence. When he reached the road language, he put on his glasses and read it again. This was drafted from our recorded instrument, he said. So Bradley has a copy. Anyone can get a copy from the clerk. Could that page release enough for the sale? It tries to. Tries? It's sloppy. The legal description is incomplete, but if you had signed it, someone could argue you intended to release the access restriction. He placed the paper flat on his desk. It might not survive a fight. It could still cause you a very expensive one. I looked at Fred's gold company name on the folder. He wanted me to sign it at the kitchen table. Yes. While telling me it verified my address. Yes. Rodney removed his glasses. This is no longer a family disagreement about selling land. I looked at the blank line where Fred had intended to place my daughter's name. No, I said, it isn't. Rodney folded the disputed page into a clear evidence sleeve. I'm keeping this, he said. The whole folder? The whole folder. What do I keep? A copy. I'll have Marie scan every page. He picked up his phone and asked her to come in. While we waited, he wrote Fred's name and telephone number on his yellow pad. Do you want me to contact him? He asked. Not yet. That answer is becoming a habit. It's worked so far. Rodney didn't smile. Someone tried to get your property rights through deception. We need to assume they'll try something else. What else is there? He looked toward the folder. If they can't get your signature, they may try to get authority over the person who owns it. I understood the words. I didn't understand why he'd chosen them. What does that mean? It means you call me if anyone asks about your health. Anyone. A doctor you don't know, an insurance company, a social worker, even a friendly person from church. Bradley can't just declare me incompetent. No, but he can ask a court to do it. That sounded too large for the people involved. Bradley sold tractors and combines. Shannon organized the church food pantry twice a year. They weren't people who went to court to take over someone's life. Then again, I hadn't thought they were people who redirected mail. Marie took the folder away to scan it. Rodney wrote his private telephone number on the back of a business card. You already have my office number, he said. This one rings at home. I'm not planning to call you at midnight. Neither of us planned any of this. I put the card in my wallet. 2 days later, someone came to my door just after lunch. He wore a tan shirt with a badge clipped near his belt. I saw the papers in his hand through the window. This time, I didn't invite him inside. Stanley Baker? He asked. Yes. He confirmed my address and handed me a large envelope. You've been served. I signed only the receipt. I read it first. The man returned to his car while I stood on the porch. I could see the Platte County Court heading through the envelope window. Inside, I placed the papers on the kitchen table. Petition for appointment of guardian and conservator. The petitioner was Bradley Reed. I read the first page 3 times. Bradley claimed I was suffering from grief-related cognitive decline. He claimed I had become isolated, suspicious, and unable to manage complex financial matters. He said I was refusing necessary help and placing significant property at risk. The requested guardian was Bradley. The requested conservator was also Bradley. I kept reading. According to the petition, he wanted temporary authority to manage my mail, bank accounts, property decisions, medical appointments, and living arrangements until a full hearing could be held. The next page listed examples of my decline. I had forgotten meals. I had become confused about dates. I had shown anger toward people trying to help me. I had refused to discuss safe housing. I had interfered with the responsible sale of family property. That last one told me what the others were for. The farm sale wasn't part of their concern about me. Their concern about me was part of the farm sale. A report from Dr. Cheryl Gonzalez was attached. Her office was in Cheyenne. She was a psychiatrist. The report called itself a competency evaluation, though I had never met her. It said Bradley had provided family history, observations, and selected financial documents. It referred to my wife's death and described a rapid deterioration afterward. Doctor? Gonzalez wrote that my behavior was consistent with complicated grief accompanied by impaired judgment. She recommended immediate family supervision. In one paragraph, she said I had demonstrated poor recall of dates. There was no explanation of when I had demonstrated it or to whom. Another paragraph mentioned an episode in which I became agitated over ordinary property maintenance. The bulldozer. That was how they described me finding Judith's garden under a blade. The report ended with a sentence saying I might lack sufficient capacity to make independent decisions involving real estate. I picked up the telephone and called Rodney's private number. He answered immediately. What arrived? How did you know something arrived? You wouldn't call this number to discuss fishing. I've been served with a guardianship petition. He was silent for one breath. Who filed? Bradley. Any hearing date? Next Tuesday at 9. Any request for temporary authority? Yes. Bring everything. Don't separate the pages. I'm leaving now. Stanley, listen to me. Before you drive, tell me exactly how you feel. Angry. Anything else? No. Are you steady? Yes. Then come in. I put the petition back into the envelope. Before leaving, I locked my strongbox and checked the workshop drawer. Both recorded copies were still there. At Rodney's office, Marie took me straight through. Rodney read the petition without speaking. When he reached Dr. Gonzalez's report, he leaned closer to the page. Have you ever met this woman? No. Telephone call? Not that I know of. Video appointment? No. Did you consent to her reviewing medical records? No. Then she didn't conduct a competency evaluation. She says she did. She conducted a collateral review based on whatever Bradley chose to give her. That's not the same thing. Will the judge know that? I'll make sure of it. He flipped to the requested powers. They want access to your bank accounts and property authority. I saw. This would let Bradley sign documents for you if temporary authority were granted, including the road release. He'd try, could he? Not if I'm standing there, but that appears to be the point. I looked at Bradley's signature beneath the petition. It was the same quick slant I'd seen on dealership invoices. Does Shannon know? She isn't listed as a petitioner. That wasn't my question. I don't know. I called her from Rodney's office. I put the telephone on speaker so he could hear. Shannon answered on the fourth ring. Dad? I received court papers. The line went quiet. Bradley filed to become my guardian. I know he talked to someone. That isn't what I said. I'm trying to understand it too. When did you learn? This morning. Before or after I was served? I don't know when you were served. Did you read the petition? No. Did you know he asked for control of my bank accounts? What? Did you know he asked for authority to decide where I live? He said it was temporary protection. Protection from whom? Dad, please don't yell. I wasn't yelling. Rodney gave a small shake of his head, warning me not to argue about it. Did you speak to Dr. Cheryl Gonzalez? I asked. Who? The psychiatrist who says I may not be competent. I didn't know there was a psychiatrist. Bradley paid her. I don't know anything about that. Ask him. I will. Ask him whether he gave her my financial records. Why would he have your financial records? My mail was forwarded to his post office box. She stopped breathing for a moment. I could hear it. What are you talking about? There's an unauthorized forwarding order. It uses his business number. That has to be a mistake. I have the record. He may have been trying to help. With what? I don't know. Then stop answering for him. Rodney pointed to the petition. I understood. Are you coming to the hearing? I asked. When is it? Tuesday morning. I'll talk to Bradley. That wasn't my question. I don't know, Dad. She ended the call. I looked at Rodney. She didn't know about the doctor. She sounded surprised. She also sounded ready to forgive it. She's trying to keep two versions of her life from colliding. I'm the inconvenient version, for the moment. Rodney reached for another sheet of paper. We need an independent assessment. I don't need a psychiatrist. I agree. The court still needs evidence. My regular doctor has treated me for 30 years. Call him. Dr. Thomas Keene's receptionist found an opening the next morning. I arrived 20 minutes early. I brought my medication bottles, bank receipt, driver's license, and a copy of the petition. Dr. Keene came into the room holding the papers. He had treated my blood pressure, stitched my hand after a fan belt broke, and sat beside Judith during her last office visit. Have you met Dr. Gonzalez? He asked. No. Has she examined you? No. He read the report again. This isn't an examination. That's what Rodney said. Dr. Keene set it aside. I'm going to ask questions that may feel insulting. I've had practice this week. He asked the date, location, and reason for the appointment. He gave me 3 words to remember. River, nickel, chair. He asked me to draw a clock showing 10 minutes past 11. He had me count backward by 7s. I missed one number, corrected myself, and continued. Then he asked the 3 words. River, nickel, chair. He checked my balance, reflexes, hearing, and vision. He reviewed my medications and asked how I manage them. I take 2 pills in the morning, I said. They sit beside the coffee. Any missed doses? Not since Judith died. What happened then? I missed one morning at the hospital. He asked about food, sleep, driving, and bills. I answered plainly. I told him I sometimes made 2 cups of coffee. I told him I slept badly. I told him I had eaten sandwiches on days I didn't feel like cooking. That sounds like grief, he said. That's what it feels like. It doesn't sound like incapacity. He wrote a letter while I waited. It stated that I was fully oriented, understood my property and finances, managed my own medication, drove safely, and showed no evidence of cognitive impairment. It also stated that grief alone did not remove decision-making capacity. I read the letter before leaving. Rodney filed it that afternoon. Tuesday morning, I wore my dark memorial suit to court. It was the only suit that fit without pulling at the buttons. Rodney met me outside the courtroom. Bradley stood near the opposite wall. He wore a navy jacket and kept looking at his phone. Shannon wasn't there. When the clerk opened the door, Bradley approached me. "This didn't need to become ugly," he said. "You filed court papers because you won't listen. To whom?" "To your family." "You mean you?" His jaw moved. "I'm trying to protect everybody." "From my signature?" Rodney touched my elbow. "Inside," he said. The hearing lasted less than 15 minutes. The judge reviewed Dr. Gonzalez's report first. "Was Mr. Baker examined?" she asked Bradley's facilitator. The facilitator looked down at his notes. "The doctor completed a professional assessment based on collateral information." "That wasn't my question." "No, Your Honor." She did not examine him directly. The judge looked at Bradley. "You are asking for emergency control over another adult's finances based on a report prepared without meeting him." Bradley stood. His behavior changed after his wife died. The judge looked at me. I answered her questions about my property, accounts, and living arrangements. Rodney submitted Dr. Keene's letter. The judge read it. Then she dismissed the request for temporary guardianship and the full petition for lack of evidence. No speech, no warning, just a few plain words from the bench. Outside, Bradley followed us down the courthouse steps. "You made me look like I was stealing from you," he said. I stopped. "You asked the judge for my money, my house, and my signature. That farm sale affects Shannon's future. Then why isn't Shannon here?" He looked toward the parking lot. "She couldn't handle this." "No, you didn't want her hearing it." For once, Bradley had nothing ready. He walked away. Rodney stood beside me until Bradley's pickup left the lot. "What now?" he asked. I looked at the courthouse doors. Until that morning, part of me still believed Bradley was cutting corners because he needed a sale. Now I knew he was willing to have me declared incapable to get it. Rodney and I walked toward Main Street. He wanted coffee. I wanted to move. We ended up at a diner 2 doors from his office. The waitress brought 2 cups without asking. Rodney took cream. I drank mine black. "Don't mistake a dismissed petition for the end of this," he said. "I don't." "Bradley's under pressure?" "I know." "No, you know he's acting like a man under pressure. We still don't know what's applying it." I stirred coffee I hadn't added anything to. "The sale price is a little over $2 million. That's a lot of pressure relief. Shannon said they wanted something easier. Do you believe her?" "I believe she believes it." Rodney looked through the window. Bradley's dealership was on the north side of Wheatland, beyond what we could see. "How has his business been doing?" he asked. "He says it's doing well." "That wasn't my question." "I don't know. I'd stopped paying attention to the dealership years earlier. Bradley opened it in 2010. At first, he sold used tractors, loaders, and hay equipment. Then he took on 2 new equipment lines. He expanded the service bays. He bought a delivery truck. He added a row of new machines along the highway. Bradley liked a full lot. He said empty space made customers think you were failing. I had noticed the same combine sitting there through 2 winters. Until Rodney asked, I hadn't considered what that meant. After coffee, I returned to First Plat Bank. I wanted to make sure the guardianship dismissal was noted on my accounts. Bradley had never been an authorized signer, but I no longer wanted to depend on anyone understanding that. The lobby was busier than before. 2 ranchers stood at the counter. A woman waited with a deposit bag from the grocery store. Ellen Markham worked at the last window. I'd known Ellen for more than 30 years. Judith and Ellen volunteered together at the library sale. Ellen had come to the memorial and brought lemon bars afterward. She saw me and waved me over. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Some days better than others." I think about Judith every time I pass the gardening books. She would have liked that. I handed her the court order dismissing the petition. I need this added to my account records. She read the first page. Her face tightened. Bradley filed this? Yes. Does Shannon know? She knows now. Ellen looked toward the offices behind the counter. I shouldn't say this. That sentence always means someone is about to say something important. What? She lowered her voice. I hope they aren't trying to drag you into the dealership problem. What dealership problem? Her mouth opened slightly. You don't know. Know what? She looked down at the court order. I assumed the farm sale was a family decision. It was their decision. Bradley told the bank the property proceeds were committed. I didn't speak. Ellen glanced toward the lobby again. I've already said too much. How much does he owe? I can't discuss another customer's accounts. You brought it up. I'm sorry, I thought you were involved. Involved how? He said the sale would resolve everything. What is everything? She took a step back from the counter. Stanley, I can't. Is the dealership in default? She pressed her lips together. That was an answer. How long? Please don't ask me. Since this year? She didn't move. Last year? Nothing. 2022? Her eyes shifted. I remembered Bradley complaining about supply delays that year. Dealers had ordered equipment during the shortage, expecting demand to stay high. Some machines arrived late, after prices and interest rates had changed. He'd said his lot was full because he was prepared. Maybe it was full because he couldn't sell what the bank had financed. Does Shannon know? I asked. I thought she did. She doesn't. I don't know what she knows. You thought I knew too. Bradley represented the farm sale as agreed family support. What does that mean? He said everyone understood the deadline. What deadline? Ellen closed her eyes. August 4th. The scheduled closing. Nobody had told me there was a scheduled closing. How much? I asked again. A man appeared in the doorway behind her. I recognized Ronald Ortega from Rotary Breakfasts. He handled commercial loans. He looked at Ellen, then at me. Is there an issue with Mr. Baker's account? He asked. No, Ellen said. He brought a court order for his records. Ronald's attention moved to the papers. What kind of court order? A dismissed family petition? I said. His expression gave away nothing. Do you need assistance? I need to know whether my property has been represented as collateral for Bradley Reed's debt. Ronald came out of the doorway and lowered his voice. We should speak privately. His office had a glass wall facing the lobby. He shut the door and closed the blinds. I sat across from his desk. Ellen remained outside. Ronald placed his hands together. Are you alleging unauthorized use of your property? I'm asking whether Bradley used my land to secure a loan. I can't discuss his loan. You can tell me whether my property is attached to it. Your retained parcel is not collateral with this bank. The 500-acre parcel? That property is owned by Shannon and Bradley. Is it collateral? He paused. I can only discuss property you own. My easement crosses it. I'm aware there is an access issue. That was useful. How are you aware? He looked irritated with himself. Bradley disclosed that an easement release might be required before closing. Did he tell you I agreed to release it? He indicated it was a routine family matter. Did he say I had agreed? Ronald chose his next words carefully. He gave the bank no reason to expect the closing would fail. That isn't an answer. It's the answer I can give. Is the bank depending on the sale? I can't discuss his account. August 4th, I said. His face remained still, but one finger tapped the desk. Is that the deadline? I haven't given you a deadline. Ellen did. He stopped tapping. How much does he owe? Ronald stood. I'm sorry, Stanley. I can verify your property isn't pledged. Beyond that, you'll need to speak with Bradley. Did he tell you I was losing my mind? Ronald stayed standing. He said there were family complications. Did he mention a guardianship petition? No. Did he mention a psychiatrist? No. That answer came without caution. I rose. If the closing fails, what happens? I can't advise you on another customer. I'm not asking for advice. Ronald opened the office door. Speak with your attorney. I left the bank carrying my court order. Ellen was helping another customer. She didn't look at me. I drove past Reed Equipment on my way home. The front row held 4 new tractors. Their tires still had molding lines. A large combine sat near the fence with a faded sale banner tied to its ladder. I parked across the highway at a gas station. A service truck came out of Bradley's yard and turned toward town. 2 mechanics stood beside an open bay. Nothing looked closed. Nothing looked desperate. That was the advantage of equipment inventory. $1 million of debt could sit in neat rows and look successful. I called Rodney from the truck. I found the pressure. Where? First Platte Bank. I told him what Ellen had said and what Ronald had refused to say. Rodney listened without interrupting. "Come back to the office," he said. "I was just there. Come back." Marie had already pulled up the Wyoming business filing system when I arrived. Rodney searched Read Equipment and Implement. Several financing statements appeared. First Platte Bank had recorded security interests against the dealership's inventory, equipment, accounts, and proceeds. The earliest active filing dated to 2022. There were amendments after that. Each added categories of collateral. One included after acquired inventory. Another included service receivables and replacement equipment. "What does this tell us?" I asked. "That the bank financed his inventory and protected its position. Does it tell us how much?" "No. What happens when equipment doesn't sell? Interest keeps running. The bank still expects payment. Can the bank take the machines? If Bradley defaults, yes. Then why does he need the farm money? Let them take the inventory. Because it may be worth less than he owes." I thought of the faded banner. Rodney printed each filing. "Ellen mentioned August 4th, I said. "The closing date? I assume so. And Ronald knew about the easement." "Yes." Rodney sat back. "Bradley promised the bank proceeds from a sale he can't complete without your signature. He must think he can get it. He tried a consultant, then a guardianship. Both failed. That doesn't remove his deadline." I looked at the financing statements. "How deep is he?" "We don't know. Ellen did. Rodney wouldn't encourage me to press her. He didn't need to. I had no intention of causing trouble for someone who'd spoken from concern. I called Shannon instead. She answered from her car. "I can't talk long." "When is the farm closing?" She was silent for a moment. "Who told you there's a closing?" "August 4th. Did Linda call you?" "No." "Then who?" "Is that the date?" "Yes." "So you already have a signed contract. We accepted an offer last week." "For how much?" 2.1. $2,100,000. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because every conversation turns into a fight." "Does the contract require my road release?" "I don't know. Linda handles that." "Has Bradley told you there may be an access problem?" "He says title companies always find little things." "Does the sale money go into the dealership?" Her answer came fast. "No. Are you sure?" "Yes." "How much does the dealership owe First Platte Bank?" She laughed once. It wasn't amusement. "I don't know what you're talking about. Ask Bradley. The business has loans. Every dealership does." "How much?" "I don't manage the business. Does he discuss it with you?" "He handles business finances. I handle our home accounts." "Did you sign anything for the bank?" "No. The farm is in both your names. I know that." "Did you promise the proceeds to First Platte?" "No." "Did Bradley?" I said no. "You said you didn't manage the business." She went quiet. A horn sounded near her. "I have to go." "Shannon, don't sign anything else until you see the dealership accounts. You don't get to order me around. Then ask one question. Ask Bradley what happens on August 4th if the farm doesn't close." She ended the call. That evening, Ellen telephoned my house. "I'm sorry," she said. "You tried to warn me. I shouldn't have discussed it at the counter. You didn't give me a statement. I said enough. Can you answer one thing?" "I don't know. I haven't asked yet." She sighed. "Go ahead. Is 650,000 close?" There was a long silence. "Yes." "Has it been building since 2022? "Yes." "Is the farm sale the only reason the bank hasn't acted?" Another silence. "Yes." "Does Shannon know?" "I've never discussed it with her." "Has Bradley told the bank she knows?" "He speaks for both of them." "He always has." Ellen lowered her voice further. "Ronald gave Bradley time because the farm contract would pay the debt. If the money doesn't arrive, the dealership has no remaining room. Meaning, the bank calls the loan. Bradley loses control of what happens next." After we hung up, I wrote the amount beside the post office case number, $650,000. Then I wrote the date, August 4th. Everything Bradley had done now had a price and a deadline. The bulldozer made the property easier to photograph. The stolen mail let him watch for bank and title notices. Fred's folder was meant to remove my easement. The guardianship petition was meant to remove me when I refused. He wasn't selling the farm to start a simpler life. He was selling Shannon's inheritance to save the business he had already lost. The next morning, I took the land folder from my strongbox. I spread the papers across the kitchen table. The copy Rodney gave me sat beside the originals Judith had stored away. She had organized them by year. Each group was held with a paper clip and wrapped in a folded sheet of notebook paper. Her handwriting appeared across the top. 2005, farm transfer, house and road protected. That was all she'd written. The warranty deed came first. It transferred the 500-acre parcel to Shannon and Bradley. Their names were equal on the page. Beneath it was the easement grant. The road description followed survey markers, fence corners, and measured distances. I recognized the route, even without the map. The last document carried the right of first refusal and reversion language. Judith had placed a yellow tab beside the signature page. The adhesive had dried, but her pencil mark remained. Keep with house papers. I ran my thumb over the words. She'd known these papers mattered. I had treated them like something finished. I put everything back in order and called Rodney. I want to verify the instrument is still active. It is. I want more than your memory. My memory is excellent. So is mine. Bradley still tried to take it. Rodney was quiet. All right, he said. Meet me at the clerk's office at 10. The Platte County clerk's office was inside a brick building near the courthouse. Rodney arrived carrying a briefcase with scuffed corners. You brought the original? He asked. No. A copy. Good. We went to the records counter. Rodney requested the complete chain of title for both parcels, starting with the 2005 transfer. The clerk entered the legal descriptions into her system. The first screen showed the warranty deed. The second showed my retained parcel. The third listed recorded interests attached to the 500 acres. My easement appeared near the top. A separate entry carried the right of first refusal and reversion terms. Rodney asked the clerk to search for any release, amendment, subordination, termination, or satisfaction recorded afterward. She searched under my name. Then she searched under Shannon's and Bradley's names. She checked both parcel descriptions. There's nothing releasing it, she said. Any later document that conflicts with it? Rodney asked. No. Any mortgage against the farm parcel? She looked again. There's a deed of trust from several years ago. It was released. Nothing current. What about a pending transfer? Nothing recorded. That meant the sale contract remained private. No deed had changed hands. Rodney requested certified copies of every relevant page. The clerk printed them on heavy paper. She stamped each copy, signed the certification, and pressed the county seal into the lower corner. I watched her do it. Can anyone record a release without me? I asked. Your signature would need to be acknowledged by a notary, she said. What if someone files one anyway? We don't decide whether a document is legally valid. We check whether it meets recording requirements. Rodney answered the part behind my question. If a forged release appeared, we'd challenge it immediately. I looked at the index again. Can you flag my name? The clerk shook her head. We don't have an alert system for that. Then I'll check it myself. How often? Rodney asked. Every morning until August 4th. The clerk gave me a visitor login for the public records website. She showed me how to search by name and parcel number. Before leaving, Rodney asked for one more certification. It stated that no release of the recorded instrument appeared through that morning. Outside, I placed the copies in a flat document case. Is that enough verification? He asked. Not yet. He sighed. What else? I want you to explain every way this could fail. We returned to his office. Rodney closed the door and spread the certified pages across his desk. He began with the access road. The farm parcel relies on this recorded route for its established legal access. The instrument gives you permanent ingress and egress. More importantly, the transfer protections require your written consent before a sale. Could they build another road? Not before closing. They'd need county approval, engineering, and a lawful connection. Even then, a new road wouldn't erase the recorded sale restrictions. Could a judge order me to sign? Not because Bradley wants money. Could Shannon sign for me? No. Could a guardian? The petition was dismissed. There is no guardian. Could they sell subject to the easement? Not under the current contract, and not without addressing your right of first refusal. The buyer wants clear title and usable access. What if the buyer accepts the risk? The reversion clause still exists. What if Bradley closes without telling me? Then the triggering language applies. The land returns to me automatically. The document says, title reverts. In practice, we'd record notice and may need a court to confirm it if anyone resisted. But yes, the ownership claim returns to you. Would I have to pay the buyer? That would become Bradley's problem. The buyer would pursue whoever gave them a defective title. I looked at the certified stamp. Could Bradley claim I agreed verbally? The instrument requires a signed, notarized release. What if he says I'm refusing out of spite? That doesn't change the document? What if Shannon says the original gift means I owe them cooperation? It doesn't? He leaned back. Stanley? The law can't make you release a property right because your daughter regrets the conditions attached to a gift. I let that settle. Do you see any weakness? I asked. Only practical ones. Such as? You care about Shannon. Bradley knows it. He may use that. He already has. He may do worse when he understands the bank deadline is real. Does the bank have a claim against the farm proceeds? Bradley may have promised or assigned the proceeds inside his loan agreement. That doesn't give the bank your easement. Could the bank pressure me? They can ask. They can't sign for you. I gathered the certified copies. Rodney stopped me. One more thing. Your right of first refusal means they should have formally delivered the sale contract to you before accepting the buyer's offer. They didn't. That's another defect. Do we use it? Not yet. That was the first time Rodney said those words before I did. He made 2 working sets. One stayed in his locked file room. One went into his briefcase. I kept the county certified set. On the way home, I stopped at the post office. Carl saw me and disappeared into the back. He returned with a large white envelope. This came from postal inspection, he said. I was going to call you. Inside was a scanned copy of the original change of address form. My name was printed across the top. My home address appeared beneath it. The new address was Bradley's post office box. The signature at the bottom was not mine. Someone had written Stanley Baker in a slow, careful hand. Below the signature, a box labeled Authorized Agent was checked. Bradley Reed was printed beside it. His dealership telephone number appeared again. Did he show identification? I asked. It was submitted in the outside collection box, Carl said. We don't know who physically dropped it. Can he claim someone else wrote his name? He can claim anything. Is the forwarding stopped? Yes. Was any mail recovered? Carl gave me 3 envelopes. One was a bank advertisement. One came from the county assessor. The third bore the return address of Platte County Title and Abstract Company. I didn't open it at the counter. Was anything else delivered to that box? The system shows 4 pieces processed before cancellation. We recovered 3. What was the 4th? We can't tell from the record. Could Bradley have collected it? It's possible. I thanked him and carried everything to my truck. The title company envelope contained a notice addressed to property owners affected by a pending title review. It requested confirmation of my mailing address and asked me to contact the company if I held any unrecorded interest affecting the farm parcel. My interest wasn't unrecorded. I folded the notice and placed it back inside. The title company was already looking. They hadn't found the problem yet. If they had, the letter would have asked for a release. I called Rodney from the parking lot. Postal inspection sent the form. Does it identify Bradley? As the authorized agent. Bring me a copy. I also received a letter from Platte County Title. What does it say? I read it aloud. Don't respond, he said. They asked for confirmation. They already have the correct address from the public record. Let their search proceed. They may call Bradley when they find the easement. They will. He'll know before the closing. Maybe. Or they'll put the issue on the closing requirements list and assume he can resolve it there. Why would they assume that? Because Bradley told everyone this was a routine family matter. I looked across the post office parking lot. So, we let the title company do its own work. Yes, you do not alert them. You do not conceal anything either. If they contact you directly, call me. At home, I checked the public records website. No release had been filed. I scanned the postal form and saved it on 2 flash drives. One went to Rodney, the other went into the workshop drawer. The original form joined my certified property documents in the strongbox. I arranged the remaining evidence by date. The photographs of the bulldozer came first, then the retirement pamphlets, then the forwarding record, then Fred's folder, the guardianship petition, Dr. Gonzalez's report, Dr. Keene's letter, and the dismissal order. I made a separate envelope for the recorded land documents. On the front, I wrote August 4th. Then I called Rodney again. I want you available that day. I already cleared my calendar. I haven't decided where we'll be. You will. After we hung up, I stood in front of the cupboard above the refrigerator. I took down the bourbon Judith had given me. I poured one glass, no toast, no speech. I carried it to the porch and sat where I could see the farm roof beyond the cottonwoods. The road between us looked narrow from there. On paper, it was wide enough to stop everything. I finished the bourbon and washed the glass. Thursday afternoon, Shannon called. "We need to meet," she said. "About what?" "The closing." "Who's we?" "You, me, and Bradley." "Where?" "Our house." "Tomorrow evening." "What time?" 6. I wrote it beside the telephone. "Will Linda be there?" "No. This is family." "Then why does it concern a real estate closing?" She ignored that. "There are documents you need to sign." "What documents? Something for the access road?" "Send them to Rodney. Bradley says that'll delay everything." "Why?" "He says attorneys turn simple things into problems." Rodney wrote the original. Another pause. "We're asking you to come talk," she said. "I'll be there." I arrived at 6 exactly. Bradley's pickup was in the driveway. Linda's car wasn't there. Shannon had set out coffee and a plate of store-bought cookies. Nobody touched either. Bradley sat at the head of the dining table. A thin document lay in front of him. I took the chair across from Shannon. She looked tired. There were dark circles beneath her eyes. Bradley looked as though he'd come from the dealership, though his shirt was clean and his boots had been wiped. "Thank you for coming," Shannon said. I waited. Bradley pushed the document toward me. "The title company found your easement. I expected they would." His hand stopped. "You knew about it?" "I knew I had road access." "They need a release before Tuesday." "What kind of release?" "A limited one. It clears the farm parcel for transfer." "Does it remove my right to use the road?" "No." "Then why do they need it?" Bradley leaned back. "Because the language is old and broad. The buyer doesn't want questions. Neither do I." Shannon touched the edge of the paper. "Dad, your road stays." That's what Linda said. "Is Linda an attorney?" "No, but the title company prepared this." I picked it up. The heading read, "Easement and Transfer Rights Release." It was more direct than Fred's version. It identified the 2005 instrument by recording number. It released my right of first refusal, waived the reversion provision, and allowed the farm sale to proceed. My road access remained, but everything blocking the sale disappeared. I turned to the signature page. A notary section waited below my name. "This does more than protect my road," I said. Bradley folded his arms. "It releases outdated language. Language you need released." "Yes." "What happens if I don't sign?" Shannon's face tightened. "The sale can't close." That was the first time either of them admitted it plainly. "And if the sale can't close?" I asked. "We lose the buyer." "What else?" Bradley answered. "There could be damages under the contract." "How much?" "That depends." "On what?" "Dad," Shannon said, "we aren't here to go through every possible disaster." "I am." She pushed the coffee pot toward me. "Please don't do this." I left my cup empty. "Why does the sale need to close Tuesday?" "Because that's the agreed date." "Could it be extended?" Bradley shook his head. "The buyer is moving money from out of state. They've scheduled people. Linda has done weeks of work. What happens at the dealership on Tuesday?" He looked at me without blinking. "Nothing." "First Platte Bank seems interested." Shannon turned toward him. "What does the bank have to do with the farm sale?" "Nothing unusual," Bradley said. "We have ordinary business financing." "How much?" I asked. His eyes stayed on mine. "That's private." "Private from your wife?" Shannon looked between us. "Bradley?" He turned to her. "The dealership has credit lines. You know that. I know we finance inventory." "Exactly." "How much do we owe?" "This isn't the time." She sat back. "When is the time?" Bradley pointed at the release. "After we get through the closing, then we can sit down and review everything." I watched Shannon's hand close around the edge of the table. "You told me the sale money was for investments," she said. "It is." "You said none of it was going into the dealership." "I said the dealership wasn't the reason we were selling." "That isn't the same answer." Bradley's voice softened. "Shannon, your father is trying to turn us against each other." I hadn't said anything for several seconds. She looked at me. I let the silence answer for itself. Bradley stood and walked to the kitchen counter. He placed both hands against it. "This family has been stuck since May," he said. "We all love Judith, but life keeps moving." I looked toward Shannon. She stared at the unsigned release. Bradley turned around. "The buyer is paying $2,100,000. You'll still have your house, your land, and your road." Shannon and I get a clean start. Nobody loses. Why did you redirect my mail? Shannon lifted her head. Bradley's expression didn't change. I didn't. The form names you. I helped update some addresses while you were dealing with the memorial. You signed my name. No, I didn't. You listed yourself as my agent. That's not signing your name. The form has both. He sat down again. This is what I mean. You take one administrative mistake and make it sinister. What about Fred Silva? He's a consultant. He brought a disguised easement release. He brought standard transition paperwork. What about Dr. Gonzalez? Shannon looked at him. Bradley's mouth flattened. I was advised to obtain an evaluation. Without her meeting me, you refused help. I didn't know she existed. You weren't supposed to manage the evaluation. Rodney had said Bradley might do worse when the deadline became real. Sitting there, I understood that worse didn't always mean louder. Sometimes it meant saying the same lie calmly after everyone knew it was a lie. Shannon stood. I want to see the dealership accounts. Bradley looked at her. Now? Yes. We're in the middle of this. No, Dad asked. What happens Tuesday? I want to know. He lowered his voice. We'll discuss it privately. We are private. He glanced at me. Shannon followed his eyes. Then she sat down. That small movement told me she still wasn't ready. She had asked the question, but she was willing to wait for his answer. Bradley slid the release closer to me. Sign tonight. We can have a mobile notary here in 20 minutes. No. Shannon closed her eyes. Dad. I'll attend the closing. Bradley stared at me. Why? So I can hear the title company explain what I'm signing. I just explained it. You're not the title company. This is unnecessary. Then it shouldn't bother you. He looked at Shannon. She rubbed her forehead. If he comes Tuesday, will that work? Bradley's jaw tightened. He has to sign before funds can be released. I can sign there, I said. You will sign? I'll listen. That isn't good enough. It's what I'm offering. He stood again. The buyer's representative is flying in. Linda will be there. The bank is expecting confirmation. Shannon looked up. The bank? Bradley caught himself. The buyer's bank. The lie came quickly. Shannon let it pass. I folded the release and placed it back on the table. What time Tuesday? 10 in the morning, Shannon said. Where? Platte County Title and Abstract. Main Street. I'll be there. Bradley followed me to the front door. When Shannon was out of hearing, he stepped close. If you humiliate her at that table, she'll never forgive you. I'm not the one keeping her uninformed. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know she asked about the debt and you wouldn't answer. His face changed, just for a second. How much do you think you know? He asked. Enough to attend the closing. I left him on the porch. Over the weekend, nobody called. Each morning, I checked the county records website. No release appeared. Rodney called Monday evening. Are we going? He asked. I am. Do you want me in the room? Not at first. I dislike that answer. If Bradley sees you, he'll know. He may already know. He thinks I'm coming to sign. Are you? No. Rodney was quiet. Then what are you waiting for? I want him to say what he's asking me to do in front of everyone, depending on it. Call me before you enter. I will. Tuesday morning, August 4th, I put on clean jeans, a white shirt, and my brown work boots. I placed the certified instrument, the postal form, Fred's folder copy, and the guardianship papers into a plain document envelope. Then I drove into Wheatland. Rodney waited at the diner with his briefcase. I called him from my truck. I'm here, so am I. I'll telephone when I need you. You may need me before you know it. I'll keep that in mind. Platte County Title and Abstract occupied a narrow storefront on Main Street. The front window had white lettering and half-closed blinds. Inside, a receptionist directed me to the conference room. Shannon and Bradley were already seated. Linda sat near the end with a laptop open. Derek Robbins, the buyer's representative, wore a charcoal suit and had a leather travel bag beside his chair. The closing officer introduced herself as Megan. She had arranged thick stacks of documents at each place. Bradley stood when I entered. Stanley's here to handle the access release, he said. He announced it before I'd taken my chair. Derek shook my hand. We appreciate you coming in, he said. I understand this is just an old family easement. That's what Bradley says. Linda looked up from her computer. Everything else is ready, she said. Once Stanley signs, we can fund. Megan began reviewing the title requirements. She explained the sale price, taxes, recording fees, and transfer documents. Shannon signed where Megan pointed. Bradley signed quickly, without reading more than the headings. I kept my envelope on my lap. 20 minutes into the meeting, Megan reached a yellow tab. "This is the outstanding access item," she said. "Our title search identified an easement and related transfer restriction recorded in 2005. Derek looked at Bradley. "I thought that was cleared." "It will be," Bradley said. "Stanley agreed to sign today." I said nothing. Megan placed the release in front of me. "It preserves your physical use of the road," she explained. "It releases the first refusal and reversion provisions so the buyer can receive clear title." "Does the sale close without it?" I asked. "No." "Does any part of the transfer happen without my signature?" "No." Bradley leaned toward the table. "We've covered this." Derek looked at me. "Is there a problem?" Bradley answered before I could. "No. Stanley understands. He's been under strain since his wife passed, but we've handled it as a family." Linda stopped typing. Shannon looked down. Megan moved a black pen beside the signature line. Bradley had now told the buyer, the broker, the closing officer, and his wife that I had agreed. He had described my refusal as grief. He had placed the entire sale on that statement. "Go ahead," he said. "Sign it." I put my hand on the plain envelope, but I left it closed. I took out the certified instrument and placed it beside the release. "I'm not signing." Nobody moved. Bradley's chair creaked. "What?" I said, "I'm not signing." Derek looked at Megan. "What does that mean for the transaction?" "It means we can't close." Bradley stood. "Give us 5 minutes." "No," I said. He stared at me. I turned the certified document toward Megan. "This is the recorded 2005 instrument. Please confirm it matches your title search." She checked the recording number, county stamp, and legal description. "It matches." I pointed to the lower section. Read the reversion paragraph. Bradley reached for the paper. Megan moved it out of his reach and read silently. Derek leaned forward. "What does it say?" She looked at me. "You can explain it," I said. She chose her words carefully. "The farm was transferred subject to Mr. Baker's right of first refusal. Any sale requires his written release. A transfer without that release triggers reversion under the recorded instrument." "Reversion to whom?" Derek asked. "To Mr. Baker." The room went quiet. Bradley looked at me as though I'd changed shape in front of him. "You knew this whole time?" I knew after I checked what I signed. Shannon looked at the document. "Dad, are you saying the farm comes back to you? Only if someone tries to sell it without my release. We're not trying to go around you?" I opened the envelope again. The mail forwarding form did. I placed the postal inspection copy on the table. Shannon picked it up. She read my forged signature. Then she found Bradley's name beside authorized agent. She looked at him. "You said this was a mistake. It was paperwork. That has nothing to do with the sale." I placed Fred's partial release beside it. "This came to my kitchen inside a senior planning folder." Linda leaned closer. Bradley pointed at me. "He's creating a scene because he resents us selling. I laid down the guardianship petition. And this asked a judge to give you control of my property when I wouldn't sign." Derek pushed his chair back. "I wasn't told about a guardianship dispute." "It was dismissed," Bradley said. "It was a family health matter." Shannon opened Dr. Gonzalez's report. "You told me there wasn't a real evaluation." "There wasn't. That's why it was dismissed. You paid her?" "Shannon, not here." She turned another page. "You told her Dad couldn't remember dates. You told her he couldn't manage money." I gave her examples. "You told me you were only asking someone about temporary help." Bradley lowered his voice. "We need to discuss this at home." "No. You've discussed enough at home." Megan closed the seller document packet. "Without the release, I have to stop the closing." Derek stood. "Our buyer won't accept a reversion risk." "There is no risk," Bradley said. "Stanley will sign." I picked up the pen and handed it back to Megan. "No, I won't." That was the whole mechanism, no trick, no speech. The sale died at that table because my name stayed there. Linda closed her laptop. Derek called his office from the hallway. Megan began separating the unsigned documents from the completed ones. Bradley stood beside the window with his telephone pressed to his ear. He spoke quietly, then louder. I said, "We need an extension?" He listened. "You don't understand. It's a family issue." He ended the call and turned toward Megan. Has anyone contacted First Plat? The proceeds assignment requires notice if funding fails, she said. Shannon looked at him. What proceeds assignment? Bradley didn't answer. Megan made the call. Ronald arrived 35 minutes later, carrying a bank file and a white envelope. He asked Bradley to speak privately. Shannon stood. No. Whatever concerns proceeds from my farm gets said here. Ronald looked at Bradley. Bradley gave a short nod. He had run out of private rooms. Ronald opened the file. The bank extended the dealership's forbearance through today based on the executed farm contract and assignment of sale proceeds. How much? Shannon asked. $650,000 plus accrued interest and fees. She sat down slowly. Bradley stepped toward her. I was going to replace it after the sale. Replace what? The business debt. You told me the sale had nothing to do with the dealership. I was protecting you. From knowing we owed $650,000, Ronald continued, the debt has accumulated through floor plan financing and renewals since 2022. The bank relied on Mr. Reed's representation that the sellers and affected easement holder supported the transaction. Every face turned toward Bradley. Ronald removed the white envelope. Since the closing can't fund, the conditions of forbearance haven't been met. First Plat Bank is calling the commercial loan due. He placed the demand letter in front of Bradley. When? Bradley's voice was barely audible. Immediately. The file moves to recovery today. The inventory covers it. Ronald shook his head. Current liquidation estimates do not cover the balance. Shannon stared at her husband. You promised money you didn't have, from land you couldn't sell, with a signature Dad never agreed to give. Bradley looked at me. You planned this? No. I read what you put in front of me. You destroyed my business. The debt began 4 years before Judith died. He had no answer to that. Ronald closed the loan file. Derek left. Linda followed after apologizing to Shannon. The sale contract remained on the table, complete except for the one signature Bradley had assumed belonged to him. The dealership didn't collapse in one afternoon. Real consequences usually take paperwork. First Plat sent appraisers. Then recovery agents marked the financed equipment. Within 2 weeks, the newest tractors were removed from the lot. The combine with the faded banner disappeared after that. Bradley closed the service department near the end of August. He sold his pickup and moved into a furnished apartment near the highway. Shannon hired her own attorney. She learned her name wasn't on the dealership loans, but Bradley had used their expected farm proceeds to obtain more time from the bank. She filed for a legal separation. The bank pursued the dealership assets and Bradley's personal guarantees. It couldn't take my home parcel or release my road. It also couldn't take Shannon's interest in the farm through paperwork she hadn't signed. The farm wasn't sold. It wasn't returned to me either. No illegal transfer occurred, so the reversion never triggered. Shannon and Bradley still had to settle their ownership during the separation. For a month, Shannon didn't call. I didn't chase her. Then, one Saturday morning in September, I heard a vehicle on the access road. She parked beside my workshop and got out, wearing old jeans and Judith's green gardening gloves. She held the bent tomato marker I'd taken from the dirt. I found the matching one near the fence, she said. I looked into the truck bed. She had 6 rose bushes, lumber for raised beds, seed packets, and several bags of compost. What are you doing? Replanting Mom's garden. On whose land? She looked toward the farm. Mine, for now. Does Bradley know? My attorney does. That was a better answer. We drove the half-mile together. The bulldozer had left the ground hard and uneven. We spent the morning pulling broken boards and irrigation hose from the soil. Shannon worked without trying to explain herself. Around noon, she sat on an overturned bucket and removed Judith's gloves. I believed him because admitting the truth meant admitting what I'd helped him do. I kept working the soil with a fork. I should have read everything, she said. Yes. I should have asked you before the bulldozer. Yes. I'm sorry. I set down the fork. I believe you. She looked relieved. That doesn't make us all right, I said. I know. Trust didn't return because she apologized. It returned in smaller pieces. She gave back the house key that afternoon. A week later, I had the locks changed anyway. She understood. She began bringing farm papers to Rodney before signing them. She attended every meeting concerning the property. She never again asked Bradley to explain something on her behalf. We replanted the white rose first. Part of the original route had survived beside the fence. The other roses went in a straight row. Shannon rebuilt the vegetable beds. I repaired Judith's bench with oak boards from my workshop. By October, the garden looked new and unfinished. That was honest. On the final afternoon, Shannon pressed the bent tomato marker into the soft soil. I set Judith's blue seed bowl on the repaired bench. The wind moved through the cottonwoods. Beyond them, the road remained open between my house and the farm. Judith used to say a gift should be given freely, but trust should never be given blindly. I finally understood the difference. If you stayed with me to the end, tell me where you're listening from, and subscribe if you want to hear another story like mine.